And I think it's one that we're weakness with the most weak on. We don't know what we're weak on. We think we're good at it, but we're not, right? So I'm going to give you guys a way to kind of talk about it. Today we'll talk about the 8 laws of influence.
Hey, this is Blake Sloan. I've been selling real estate over 14 years. Our team of highly trained professionals, along with our unmatched marketing, has sold thousands of homes here in the Myrtle Beach area, and this is how we do it.
So, 8 laws of influence. What does influence mean? Get somebody to do shit, right? We talk about this all the time with our strategic seduction, all these other things that we have. So influence is the ability to communicate to someone to get them to do something, right? Specifically, take action, pull a trigger, write an offer, do business with me, whatever it is. In our business, right, we want them to do business with us, and we want them to trust us and like us and listen to our advice, and obviously write a contract or list a house with us and accept a contract, right? Or reduce the price, or all these things that are important for us to do. And so I'll break down kind of these laws of it. The first one is law of certainty. What do you think that means? We're not going to hit on that too deep today. We're going to talk about another one. But what do you think law of certainty is? We talk about this a lot, especially with the warrior feel and things like that. But what does that mean there? And this is something that I'm taking a little deeper into the sales piece. So not just certainty, like in how I operate, but like what do you think that means in terms of the field of influence? Confidence in the way you're what?
The way that you're coming off to them, like you know it without a doubt, like you're sure.
Yes. Now I'm looking for 2 things. So certainty in your dialogues, right? What does that mean? Certainty in what? My conversation. So certainty in my dialogue, my conversation with the client, which is super important, right? Because they're scoring you subconsciously on your certainty and how you speak. So how do you speak about what's going on in the market and things like that? Also, because here's what most time, any feedback you get from somebody, well, they're such a nice person, but they just don't really, seem like they're very good or expert. Like anytime somebody like does want to work with you or wants out of the agreement, they always start with, he or she's a nice person, but, right? And what does that mean? They don't trust you in terms of that place of certainty, right? And so the way that you have, and there's 2 pieces of this. Number 1 is your dialogue. The second piece is your relationship. So what's your certainty with your dialogue, which is how I speak to them, right? And the second piece is my relationship. With who? The client in that scenario. So that's something I have to maintain through the entire sale. And it's something I need to be very, very conscious of, and almost a way that I score in terms of, hey, look, what's I feel like right now, my certainty in our relationship together as buyer-seller, right, or as agent, listing agent or buyer's agent to my clients, or past client or whatever it is in that scenario. It's very, very, very important to do that. And so here's a key part I talked about, right? This is something to quote that I want you guys to maybe write down. And I'll read it a couple of times for you. When 2 people meet, the one who has the most certainty will have the greater influence over the other. When 2 people meet, the one who has the most certainty will have the greater influence over the other. When 2 people meet, the one who has the most certainty will have the greater influence over the other. What does that mean, you think?
A dominant figure in the conversation.
Right? It's just, there's a sell or be sold. You guys heard about that all the time, right? Whoever the dominant figure is, whoever has the most certainty in the conversation basically wins the conversation. So if that client feels like they have more certainty than you, are they going to work with you? No, not at all, right? They're going to put you down to the side, and they want somebody who is better, right, or who has more certainty how they speak. Now, here's the crazy part. What do you think the way to get certainty in terms of our business and sales? And I'm not talking about like your body and core 4. I think that's obviously what builds certainty in you. But I'm talking about certainty in your dialogues, right, and your conversation. What do you think the one thing that builds certainty more than anything? Tonality. Okay, what builds tonality? Reps. Okay.
You got to record yourself and you got to train.
The number 1 way to build scripts. SCRI. Scripts. Right? That's the way to do it. And there's 2 ways that you can look at scripts. Some people look at scripts negatively, right? That's in the salesy way. Scripts here means how do I have my word tracks and my dialogue so dialed in that I bring certainty to the conversation. So we talk about what our script does a lot of times. It helps control the conversation regardless how new you are, how experienced you are. You control the conversation because you're asking what? The right questions. Okay, it's the same thing that you're face-to-face, same thing your presentation. So that's just super important to talk about. And scripts can be anything like here, right? I need to talk to my spouse. I need to talk to my brother, my business partner, whatever it is. This is also a part of scripts. And so if I deliver that back with certainty, who wins the conversation? Me, right? If I don't have certainty, which most people don't right now with all those objections, that's why they're not taking your objection handler very well. Does that make sense? So you can say the right thing, but without certainty, guess what happens?
Doesn't resonate.
Doesn't resonate. They just say, well, I appreciate that, but no thank you. Right? Or they give you another kind of hidden objection, right? Which is just an excuse or a complaint to not do business with you, especially on the listing side, right? Oh, well, I'm just going to think about it. Yeah, I don't do business the first day. Whatever it is, it means what? I don't trust you and I don't feel certainty in your dialogue. Okay? And it's important that you check this box, and this is one thing that I talked about, is you have to be willing to record that and listen to it and say, hey, what's my certainty say in my conversation? Okay? This is higher level we're talking about here, right? So if I go back and score my presentation in listening to it, what's my certainty scale of 1 to 10, right? That's how you want to look at that overall, which I think is super important overall. Second piece here is law of authority. Law of authority. What do you think that means? I taught that a few weeks ago. Similar.
You establish yourself as an authority figure in a relationship.
Yep, and we talked about that before. Like a lot of times I do that on my social media, right? By taking a stand, by talking about the industry. But here in this conversation, this is face-to-face sales, right? So if I have this law of authority in my face-to-face sales, meaning with my clients on the telephone, face-to-face, whatever it is, right? How do I do that? All right, I like that. One way I want you guys to look yourself as authority is you take time educating yourself on the market. Why? Because you have something to talk about. They're looking for people who are authorities who know what's going on. So when I ask how the market is, you don't say good or bad. What do you say?
That's up, down, X amount.
Sales are down X%, prices up X%, right? Interest rates are X%, whatever it is. That's why I try to give you guys that daily number in the huddle every day so you can have a feel of that, right? Doing that allows me to be authority to myself, and I feel confident about it. Why? Because I watch it every day for the past 365 days just about, right? One way if you guys do this, I want to add this in here, is Keeping Current Matters. Anybody know what that is? KCM blog, right? Super important there. Another one you can watch on YouTube, which is really good, is Altos Research. The guy puts out great content there.
How you spell that?
ALTOS. I used to be a client of theirs for a long time, but I still watch the dude on YouTube. He's a great data guy. Altos Research. Obviously, you want to watch our MLS numbers, right? And you want to look at what? The hot sheet. If you know properties that they don't know about and you bring them up, does that make you authority? Absolutely. It's like crack to them. Same thing with the sellers, right? They look online, but you bring a comp that they didn't know about, right? Or their neighbor said it sold for X, but it actually sold for Y, and you show them. Now, what does that make you? The authority. And you got to bring that to the plate, right, so to speak, with certainty. How do I create certainty as the authorities? I do the research when? Daily. I say this 15, 20 minutes a day. Doing what? Studying the market. It's not something that happens instantly. It's something that happens over weeks and weeks and months that you're able to bring to the table for the clients. Does that make sense to y'all? Super important piece here. Now, who here is really spending 20, 30 minutes a day looking at the market, understanding like data? Not very many people, right? And so what it does is it gives you a conversation piece to use. It's like a stockbroker, right? I've talked about this a million times. But if you talk to a stockbroker, what do you want him or her to tell you about? Some cool ass stocks, right? That you probably don't know about. The clients are looking for you to do the same exact thing in real estate, right? And data and what's going on in that piece of it. So it's important for us to make sure that we look at that and think about in that scenario. Third piece here is the law of personal psychology. Law of personal psychology. What do you think that means? This is a hard one for some people. We're not going to go too deep in that today. But what do you think the law of personal psychology is?
Personal is studying yourself, right?
Yeah?
So I guess studying yourself or how you react to certain situations when you're around people.
Okay. What else you got?
Or knowing how the consumer thinks.
Okay, this is a little different. On this personal psychology piece here, this is really your mindset. And I look at this as sales IQ. So when I see personal psychology, what that means to me is how do I react to what's happening real time? So if I'm looking at my law of influence, my client throws up an objection, client throws up an issue, they have a complaint, they're bullshitting me on what their pain is, my sales IQ kicks in, and what does that do? Allows me to ask a different, deeper question. You with me on this? So my personal sales psychology is how I look at this for me as a whole, right? It's just something that's not taught. And the word I wanted you guys to take from this, that I wrote in my notes, is that it's a skill set. So you don't have to have some magical, talent from God. It's all about what's my sales IQ? How do I understand psychology of how people think? How do I ask the right questions? How do I come in and adapt to whatever bullshit they're telling me because they're bullshitting themselves? Right? So when somebody gives you the objection or they think about it, right? All that really is what? It's a defense mechanism, right? It's to defend themselves against something that may not go the way they want it to go, right? Based on their life experiences, based on what's happened to them. And so it's important for us to make sure we're able to adapt in that piece of that overall. And we're going to come back. I'm going to teach on really one of these or two of these each week and what's going on. Fourth one here. Law of energy. Law of energy. What do you think that means?
If you're hyped about it, they'll be hyped. If you're not, they're not.
Period, right? Energy sells. And so if you're hyped on it, they're going to be hyped on it. If you're not hyped on it, they're not going to be hyped on it. Or they're not going to be hyped on what? You, right? If you're boring and have no energy on the phone or face-to-face, guess what? You're going to suck at selling, right? So this is really big right now, too, on the telephone. So if you're getting a lot of hang-ups or no's, I'm not interested, I want you to go back and listen and score yourself 1 to 10 on energy, right? What's my level of energy I bring it to the table, right? You can always go back, and that's a combination of tonality, but ultimately, they want to work with somebody who has a lot of energy, right? Who's charismatic in how they operate. And so if I go back and I sound very monotone and I sound very flat, is that a high energy individual? No. Do people want to work with low energy individuals? No, right? It's just subconscious that they're scoring you. They don't want to work with low energy individuals. Okay? That's something that's important for us to do. And so I'm sharing these with us, and I want you to write them down so that you can go back and listen to some of your presentations or your telephone calls or you're making the phone calls, like your recordings. And score yourself on these and say, look, here's what I'm missing right now, okay? Because these are really powerful, and I'm going to go deep in each one each week, which I think is super important overall as well. This is what we're going to talk about today the most. This is number 5, the law of empathy. This is one a lot of people struggle with, especially in today's time, right, where people are crazier than ever. We have to make sure that we have this ability to master the law of empathy. What do you think? What does empathy mean?
Somebody else can understand someone's situation.
Okay, understanding someone's situation. What else, Sloan? Jump in their shoes. What was it? I got the definition for you guys. It's important. The ability to understand and share the feelings of another. What are the key words there, you think?
Share.
Yeah, I take understand and share the feelings. Right? So there's a difference of understanding somebody in their words, but what's the deeper level? Understanding their feelings behind it, which is super important. Okay? I'm really digging this today, and guys, I'll show you some ways to really master this. I think we struggle in this in some places where they just hear what you're saying, they go through the presentation, they hear all your shit, what do? Go somewhere else and buy or sell to somebody else who's way less qualified, way less better. And the challenge and the disconnect is empathy. Right? My ability to connect with them and them feel that I connect with them. Are you with me on this? And so the whole way you look at everything starts with empathy. And we'll teach on this today and show you some ways to do that. And some of this come from the guy in there, Split the Difference. And just stuff that he used with people who were, in essence, terrorists, right? People who would do bank robbers, have hostages. And being a hostage negotiator, you have to find ways to do what? Have empathy. Is that hard to do? You got some dude who's got 15 people he's about to kill. And he wants a helicopter delivered to the roof where he's going to kill everybody. It's kind of hard to have empathy. But it's a skill set that's mastered based on what they do. I was very good at this through timeshare. I just had so many people I could build empathy and care about them, right? Very easily. I've told you guys a story. I've had somebody from North Carolina. I think it's somebody I know in North Carolina. I tell them about my buddy in North Carolina. All of a sudden I feel what? Connection to that. And we'll talk about that in a second, which is super important for us. So I'm going to give you the other three really quick before we move to that part. The sixth one, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 is law of rapport. Law of rapport. What does that mean? Rapport is the state of mutual trust. A rapport is a state of mutual, and here it actually goes deeper, but I was giving you that one. The state of mutual trust, harmony, and a connection you establish with someone. So keywords what? Mutual trust, harmony, and connection. So I'm looking here, the pieces are my ability to have trust, harmony, and connection, which is powerful to do. And I think, so here's what happened. I can have empathy, but it doesn't mean I have rapport. You with me that? So the way I look at it is empathy is really just the entrance point to getting to rapport. Will I ever really have deep rapport without empathy? No, because they can feel it. And there's studies we'll talk about that. There's actually studies that talk about basically connections between two brains and how the vibrations are, where subconsciously, these are scientific studies, will show basically if it's disconnected or not. They can't put it into words, they just feel there's not a connection with that person. And what it is that person doesn't have empathy, and there's no ability to build rapport. So you can say all the right shit, ask the right questions, they don't feel it from you, guess what happens? Doesn't matter, they shut down, and they go somewhere else. This happens to us like 10 times a week, okay? The same thing. You go do a great presentation, we call, they don't sign with you, we do an autopsy call, and they're like, hey, look, they're a nice person, but we went somewhere else. Look them up, they sold 2 houses. Right? This is something that happens over and over and over, and it has to do with these high level here that we're missing in many cases overall. So I'll come back and we'll do deeper on that. The 7th one is law of state. Law of state, what does that mean?
Emergency.
This is your state, right? So you've been in a place, if I had to give you guys a simple way, or a word for this, what's your laser focus? Right? So state, overall, if I'm looking at this, right, is my ability to be focused, laser focused in that situation. So when you're face to face, right, am I distracted? Am I really dialed into them? Like, so a lot of times I'll be 50 different places. I'd be thinking about 60 different things, right? I wasn't laser focused into them. But when I slowed down and they could feel me and I could feel them. So what is that? I'd slow down, I own the room, I own that presentation, and I'm doing what? Looking into their eyes. I'm letting them finish the conversation that they say before I do what? Before I respond. How many times do we try to say some shit while they're still talking? And they feel like what? You're just there to talk and not actually listen to what they say. And this is some of the feedback I get a lot of times. Like, well, they just didn't really hear what I had to say. They didn't really listen to what I did. They didn't understand about me. I hear all that shit when they want to complain to me and try to get out of agreement. Right? So law states my ability to do what? To own that room and have that energy, right? And control the state of the conversation, what's going on. You with me on that? And we'll go deeper on that, how to understand that, how to go deep. And some of this is you have to really slow down. For me, it started with meditation. I would be going so fast and I had so much energy in my presentation that I would just bulldoze them and not be able to feel and take in what they were saying. And so it was really a skill set. I learned to slow down, ask questions, and say, hey, tell me more about that. Wow, that's interesting. And then I go deeper and they can feel me having a deep conversation versus what? Just having basic service level dialogue back and forth. Are you with me on that? So is that a state of focus for me overall with that, which is super important to look at in that scenario. And last one here we'll get to law of approval. What do you think that means? And this is kind of a multifaceted how we look at it, but it can go multiple ways. But what do you think law of approval means? Right? Are they in agreement? Or they approve of where you're taking them, what the outcome is, what the goal is? So in essence, is your outcome that you're taking them to in alignment with what their pain is, and how do I get them there? With that or their problem. So do they approve where I'm trying to get them to go? And do they approve of where we're trying to get to in terms of what? The outcome. With me on that? And so I have to kind of keep them in this place of approval of the outcome. Also approval in what? Me. Right? That's the multifaceted I was talking about here. There's 2 parts. But they can, like all the shit you say, the company, all the things you do, all the stuff you have, it relates perfectly to their problem. But if they don't have an approval of you and who you are and what your story is, right, guess what's going to happen? They're going somewhere else.